Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again today. My name's Steve Cooper and you're watching In Deep on the Delta, and today we're going to be talking about fishing jerkbaits on the California Delta. Now, I asked a couple weeks ago for the folks that generally watch the channel to make sure they check out all of Tactical Basson's jerkbait fishing videos, because they have really done some great videos, and they've, in my opinion, that's the Bible on jerkbait fishing. What I'm going to do today is cover what you need to fish jerkbaits on the California Delta. We're going to go over a couple of baits that you're going to need, and I'm also going to be talking about what I consider to be really important when it comes to jerkbait fishing, and that's the grip that you're using on the rod. It can be tough on your hands, wrist, shoulders, elbows. And there's several things that you can do to basically enhance the comfort of the rod that you're using or the rod that you're going to buy. I'm also going to relay a couple of techniques that I think are going to really help you to fine-tune your jerkbait fishing. Let's start off talking about the jerkbaits that you want here on the Delta. And it's going to be really simple because you only need one or two baits. You have to remember, when Matt and Tim and most guys are talking about jerkbait fishing in Clearwater lakes, they're fishing from anywhere from 2 feet to maybe 20 foot of water. In the Delta, the magic range for a jerkbait, in my opinion, is about 4 to 8 feet of water. So you can cover the magic zone here on the Delta with one jerkbait, and most of the suspending jerkbaits are in that range. When it comes to buying a jerkbait, it doesn't pay to buy cheap jerkbaits. The better jerkbaits seem to just outperform all of the cheaper models. So let's get right into it. I'm 100% on board with Matt talking about the the Megabass Vision 110. That's probably your best all-around jerkbait, and I'm going to get back to this bait in just a minute. My favorite jerkbait on the Delta is the Stacy, made by Lucky Craft. The other bait that I would suggest would be the Jackall Re-Range, and that's another great bait. Now, the Jackall and the Stacy are about $16 baits. The 110 is about a $24 bait. Now, Matt suggests the first thing that he does is he changes out the hooks, and that's not a bad idea, especially if you are an advanced jerkbait fisherman, because you're going to get some big fish on this, and they're very sharp hooks, but they're very light wire hooks. My suggestion would be to fish them right out of the box. If you're new to jerkbait fishing and you get the 110s, fish them right out of the box. By the time you change out the 3 hooks with the O-rings and everything, this is really close to a $30 bait. So if you're using the proper rod, which is going to be a fairly slow action rod, and you're not trying to horse fish in, you can catch 4 and 5 pound fish on this bait with no problem. So my suggestion, fish it right out of the box. They fish great. If you want to invest a little more money, you can go ahead and take Matt's suggestion, change out the hooks, change out the O-rings. The nice thing about the Lucky Craft, they come with a little heavier hook, and I use them straight out of the box. When you're fishing a jerkbait, you're not really setting the hook like you would do on a T-rig or when you're punching. It's kind of a sweeping hook set. So my suggestion, if you're new to jerkbait fishing and you're just strictly going to fish the Delta, I'd go out and get a couple of Lucky Craft Stacys. You can get them in a couple of different colors. I'm not really big on flash out here. I know Matt and Tim like the flash, and they think it's really a good thing to have in clear water. But in my opinion, on the Delta, where the fish are used to hunting in dingy water, 3 to 5 foot visibility, when they see a lot of flash, a lot of times it scares them. So I'll stay with basically the shad kind of colors that are fairly muted. So if you're going to get 2 colors, I'd get one that's kind of a muted bait fish color, white on the bottom, gray, green on the top, and then one with a little more flash, and see what works best for you. So with those 2 baits, you're going to cover everything that you need here on the Delta. It is so important that the rod is comfortable. Now, the one thing that I wish people would talk about when it comes to choosing rods, whether it's a jerkbait rod or whether it's a worming rod. How big is your hand? Because let's just say Matt Allen's hand is a ½ an inch larger than mine, or a ½ an inch smaller than mine, or yours. Their grip is going to be so much different with the rod and reel combination, and what is perfect for them may not be perfect for me or for you. So it's really hard to buy a comfortable rod unless you go into the store and you actually feel it. Bring your reel, bring the reel that you want on that rod so that you can put it on there, put it in your hand and feel it. But let's talk about the grip that you're going to use. I use several different grips during the course of the day. The first grip that I'm going to talk about is what I call the 2-finger split, meaning that I'm going to put the trigger in between these fingers. And instead of basically, that's maybe your standard grip, not a great grip to be using a jerkbait with. So I split that, and I keep my thumb up on top of the reel, and this finger, my index finger, I like to put right here. And that way, when I'm jerking the rod, I'm almost pointing my finger the way that I want that rod to jerk. That's with the 2-finger split, and I'll also use a single finger split where just my pinky is below this. I have 2 fingers above it and 1 on here, like that. And that way I can use this finger to actually stabilize the reel a little bit more, and it keeps the reel in my hand. So I'll go back and forth between these two all day. If I am really fatigued and I'm catching a lot of fish and I need to do something different, there's another grip that I'll use, and I'll actually grip this rod up here, right in front of it, with my finger on this. Not the perfect way to fish it, but it's going to relieve a lot of stress in my hand. I may fish it like this for 5 casts. I'll bring it back in here, fish it for a little bit, and go back and forth with my grips. So think about that when you're fishing and your hand's getting tired, to experiment with some different grips. Now, I also like to have two jerking rods when I'm using jerk baits, because of the size of the rod handles, and they're just different rods. They feel different in your hand. I've got wind grip on this. You can't see it, it's black, but you notice that's a lot thicker than it should be. On this, let me go over this rod here. You can see this is really pronounced right here. And again, this is not a jerkbait rod. This is my worming rod, and I'll give you a little story on this. I took Matt Allen's advice and I bought this Shimano Zodius rod for worming, and I liked everything about it. It's got punch to it, it's just feather light, it's everything he said it was. But when I grabbed it, it just hurt my hand to fish this thing, man, especially when I'm setting hook. Man, my fingers were hurting, and you know, I was really disappointed because I like using it, but my hands hurt so much. Well, my son turned me on to this wind wrap, and I always thought that this was for cushion. The wrap was for cushion, and primarily it is. It gives you a nice cushion and a nice grip. But what my son Nathan said, you need to build up this part of the rod right in here, and you could see where that it's probably an 1/8 inch difference, or maybe 3/8 of an inch difference right in here. And just having my hand fit in and where my fingers matched up with the trigger grip and everything else made this rod so much more comfortable. So that wind grip, and I'll put where you can get it and how much it costs and all that good stuff. I think it's about $12 or $15 a roll, and you get about 16 feet. Now, it's actually a really good deal because you don't need to wrap the whole rod. Just in here where your grip is, and maybe up top, so it'll go a long way. This rod here, I have it's not so pronounced because it's a little thicker rod. You can see the difference in the butt section in this rod and this rod. It's a thicker rod, so I didn't have to wrap as much there. But again, it's just made this rod so much more comfortable for me. And if you have a rod that's kind of giving you a problem, experiment with some of this tape. Okay guys, 3 quick tips on jerkbait fishing that can change your whole life. Okay guys, 3 quick tips when it comes to jerkbait fishing. If you're not doing these 3 things, you're not catching as many fish as you should be. Okay guys, the first tip is going to be really easy, and that is when you cast the bait out, as soon as it comes in to where you could see the flash on the bait, or you can see the bait, you want to be hyper focused on making sure you have visual contact with your bait and watching everything around that bait. You're going to be so surprised at how many fish are tracking this bait that don't take it. Some of them will come up and look at it, some of them will come up, turn away, some of them will just flat out refuse it. But if you're out watching your next cast or watching the birds, you're not going to see that. And what that will do is the fish will be telling you what's drawing them to the bait and what's repelling them from the bait. So if every time you slap the bait they all go running, that's probably telling you you need to slow down and maybe just pause a little bit longer, and instead of really snapping that bait, just give it a little snap. If every time you hold the bait or stop the bait they come back, it's going to tell you to maybe pause the bait a little bit longer. So just by keeping that visual on the bait is going to make you a better jerkbait fisherman. Tip number 2 on jerkbait fishing: it's really important to be aware of when your trolling motor is on and when it's off. You want to resist the urge to start your trolling motor when that bait is, say, 15 feet away, because you're going to be surprised at how many fish are tracking that bait and will hit it in that last 15, 10, 5 feet, or right at the boat. So if you have one tracking it that's thinking he's going to bite it, and you hit that trolling motor, that fish is gone. So let's just say the bait's right there. I'm going to be hyper focused on a visual on it. I'm going to watch it, make sure nothing's tracking it. When I get it to here, that's when I'm going to get on the trolling motor, and I'm going to go into the next boat position where I'm going to make the cast. Let's say I'm there now and I'm going to start fishing. I pull my foot off the trolling motor and I work that bait. Where the bait is now, that fish doesn't care about the trolling motor. But when it gets in here, and we're right in here, fish is going to take it within 15 feet of the boat. Trolling motor becomes very important that it's not on. So that's tip number 2. My 3rd tip is just make sure when you're snapping the bait, make sure you're on a slack line, and that's going to give it more of an animation. It's not going to pull it to the boat as fast. It's going to keep it in one spot doing this. If you're giving it the snap on a taut line, the bait comes closer to the boat by maybe a foot or 2 feet. If it's on a slack line, it just kind of goes like this in the water and stays there. So you can operate that bait and animate it and keep it in the water for a much longer period of time without moving it through. So especially on days when the fish are really finicky, you can manipulate that bait and leave it in the same spot and give them a chance to actually inspect it and maybe bite the bait. As you're popping it, drop the rod back down to the bait and pop it. Take a couple of reels, drop it and pop, drop and pop. Just work on different techniques, but make sure that you're snapping the rod when you have a slack line. Here's a bonus tip that I hadn't thought about, and I wish I had. I don't have a spinning rod on board, but we talked about comfort and how your hands can get tired of doing this all day. If you're on a great jerkbait bite and your hands are just feeling it, you're tired of throwing this conventional rod, pull out a spinning rod. And most spinning rods, they may not be perfect for jerk baiting, but they'll get you by for 45 minutes, a half an hour, where you can still use the jerk bait and snap it properly. Again, 7-foot rod, medium action spinning rod will do just fine for jerk baits. May not be perfect, but what it's going to do, it's going to allow you to fish through that bite. And if they're taking jerk baits and only jerk baits, you don't want to stop fishing a jerk bait. So by switching over from a conventional rod to a spinning rod, that's another tip that you might use to just get by during the course of that day. All right, that's my 2 cents on fishing jerk baits here on the Delta. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe and hit the like button, and keep watching my videos. Hopefully you found something in there that's going to help you catch a few more fish on the Delta. So again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Good luck.